Hi, and welcome to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson from OTG Capital. Always a pleasure to have Justin Bott from Services Australia rejoining us again. Justin, how are you?
I am great, Ray. Thank you so much for having me and having me on the station.
Wonderful. Now, look, the nice and interesting thing is people don't always associate Services Australia, but let's get that connection. It's Centrelink that for many people, if you're not familiar with that newer name, it's been around for probably a number of years now. But again, still people hang on to those old names quite a bit. Now,
The payments are Centrelink payments. So it is actually, your age pension is a Centrelink payment, though it's administered by Services Australia, it is a Centrelink payment. So we take care of Centrelink, Medicare, Child Support Agency are the main three things that you can think of. But still, it is definitely, these are Centrelink payments, these are Medicare provided services, and these are Child Support provided services.
so you're from Centrelink.
Yeah, that's my history, definitely. I've been Centrelink all the way, yeah.
Okay, so look, we've been doing a number of end of financial year shows here on Dollars and Making Sense for obvious reasons. It's the end of the financial year, duh. But I think it's really important that people understand that there are requirements, even if they don't have regular sources of income, even if they are on, for example, a Centrelink payment. And so I thought it'd be really handy to have you back on the show and cover off some of those aspects because those kind of things don't go away. They've got to be done. Death taxes, there are a couple of other ones that used to be in there that, when I was in the armed forces, we won't go there. But anyway, I'll just simply say death and taxes, we'll leave it at that, at those for the joke for today. So, look, we've got a bunch of really good questions here that you've provided us, and I think certainly they're probably quite prevalent because you and your service officers come across these all the time in your day-to-day dealings with the tax-paying public that's out there. So let's get it stuck in. So firstly, if I'm on an age pension, do I have to lodge a tax return?
Well, it's the difference between having a taxable income and having to lodge a tax return. So the age pension, and if you're getting a pension and you're over age pension age, it is a taxable income. But just because it's a taxable income, that doesn't mean that it is enough of an income to warrant you having to lodge a tax return. So, for example, the tax thresholds are set by the Australian Taxation Office, and we've got the special benefit for older Australians called the Senior and Pensioners Tax Offset, the old SAPTO. And that basically means that if my only source of income is my age pension, yes, it's taxable, but it isn't enough of a taxable income to warrant me having to pay any tax. Therefore, I don't have to lodge the full tax return to declare a taxable income because I just haven't earned enough. But if it's a different story, if the age pension is associated with other sources of taxable income. So the way the age pension income test works is that I can actually earn quite a significant amount of income from wages or from self-employment and get an age pension on top of that. Now, put them all together, and I have now moved into a realm where I have enough taxable income that warrants me having to lodge a tax return and potentially have to pay tax on that.
Okay. Now, I actually wrote this down, although it's not in our normal list of questions, but I also wrote down here, dead people need to put in their tax return as well. I know this is probably a weird one, but ladies and gents, if you obviously have died, you don't have to worry about it. But if somebody in your member of your immediate family has, they still have to put in a tax return in the year that they passed. So the estate has to. And so
Yeah, so
even if,
that'd
for
be
example,
that's a responsibility of the executor of the estate as part of their finalising all of your finances before the estate can be properly distributed, is having to lodge a tax return and have to deal with that as well. Yeah.
and there is a little checkbox at the beginning of it saying, "Is this your last one?" I always find that rather ominous when I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking to myself, "I hope not." So there you go. Let's move on. If I'm getting a payment and I've used the "Do I need to lodge a tax return to confirm that I do I need to get it done straight away? And I think timing is a really good subject. We've been talking about timing of tax returns quite a bit in our other shows. So it's not strange to see it coming up again with your own advice coming in from Services Australia. So is there anything that can help in that regard?
Yeah, so the the question that we're asking beforehand is, if I'm on an age pension, do I need to lodge a tax return? One of the things, if you're really not sure, that you can do is go to the Australian Taxation Office website, which is ato.gov.au, and then you go to this tool. It's really easy to understand what it's for, because it's called, do I need to lodge a tax return? So that will give you the guidance of giving you information about whether you actually need to lodge one or not. So that'll help answer that question. Now, when it comes to actually lodging the tax return, what the Australian Taxation Office tells us is that they will automatically pre-fill your income sources basically by the end of July. So if you lodge your tax return after the end of July, all your income information should already be there. And it becomes, it's not now an issue of having to track every payment summary and bank statement and share certificate to work out what your income is. It's more just confirming that the information that the ATO has is correct. And the advantage for that is going to be that your tax return is going to be more accurate. So if you lodge your tax return after they've pre-filled it, that means that there's going to be less issues of it being incorrect, which means less chance of amendments, less chances of having to go through the whole process again to correct the mistakes that might be there. So part of that process is also going to be with Services Australia. We will also provide that information to the Australian Taxation Office, and they will have it part of the automatic process by the end of the month.
Now, I actually pay people. I run a contracting firm, and I obviously need to pay myself and people on my payroll. It's really handy, I've got to say, because at the end of the tax year, my kids are not huge accountants, and they're sort of not tax aficionados. So they knock on my my little office door here at home and say, "Dad, can you help me do my taxes?" And the pre-fill is really quite something that, given where we used to come from, the old days where we used to get what was called group certificates back in the days. I can still remember those. We've come a long way, but it also should tell people a lot about how much data matching and data transfer between government departments and the employers out there happens today. So I, like many other small businesses, use accounting software online. I happen to use Xero. I'm not giving them a particular plug one way or the other. I mean, there's Quicken and there's MWOB and a whole bunch of others. But they do what's called single touch pay, STP, and that submits all this data to the ATO as well. And so, Justin, I got to tell you, from a filling out the forms perspective, it's so much easier. And you sent me the links. So do I need to lodge a tax return? I'm actually looking at it, and the tools there, ladies and gents, I've got to tell you, are very, very simple to use, and we'll pin those links in our blog article on our website as well. And again, I won't say it's like falling off a log, because not everybody will always find it easy, but I think it's certainly a lot simpler than it used to be. So let's keep moving on.
Yeah, the other thing to remember just before we move on is that they've got all your income, but they don't have all your expenses. So that's the sort of
Yes.
stuff you do need to make sure that you're keeping a track of. You know, the tax deductions, the business related expenses, the charitable deductions, all that sort of stuff. You still need to keep those. The ATO doesn't have those pre-filled, so you've got to make sure you bring them with you, or when you're going to your tax professional, when you're filling them out yourselves. You're still going to have that bottom drawer that's still got all the pieces of paper in it, or the images on your phone now that you're using to transfer across. But the expenses, that's still our responsibility.
Fair enough. Now, if you're on a services payment, Centrelink payment, and your payment is taxable, it's a good question. Can I have the tax taken out for me, or like an employer does? So, for example, I deduct tax before I pay my employees, but does Services Australia do that on behalf of its payees as well?
We can, if you ask us to. So this is a strictly voluntary thing. So yes, Services Australia does have the ability to pay, or prepay, if you like, an amount of money to the Australian Taxation Office every fortnight. So a set amount goes to the ATO, the rest goes into your bank account. If that's something you ask us to do, and you've got to, first of all, ask us, and then you've also got to nominate an amount. So we're not going to give you any guidance about how much you should put aside or shouldn't put aside. But the really important thing, certainly for pensioners, is yes, we can do that, but is it actually something that we need to do? So if we go back to our initial people that we're talking about, if you're getting the full rate of age pension and that's your only source of taxable income, then you're not going to have to pay any tax on that. Therefore, there's no benefit for you to have small amounts going to the Australian Taxation Office, because all that means is you are over a year giving money to the ATO. At the end of the year, you've got to ask to come back. So why would you do that? You just might as well get the money going straight into your bank account. But if you are somebody who knows they're going to have other sources of taxable income, now that could be because either in the first financial year that you applied for the pension, you actually worked 7 months in your old job, which was taxable income, and then you added your taxable income, your taxable pension on top of that, or you're working part-time and you have a pension combined, and together they mean that you're going to have to move into you're in the tax world. If you're in those circumstances, then yes, you might choose to have some of the pension put aside to go to the Australian Taxation Office. Now, it's really important to say that all this is doing is avoiding an unexpected tax bill, or at least reducing the size potentially of an unexpected tax bill when you lodge your tax return. So if you're not worried about that, then that's not an issue. You don't have to do it. It's not any special powers or anything that's going on. It's just making little payments every fortnight to avoid a larger tax bill when you lodge your
A
tax
larger
return.
hit later on.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing. I'm like you. I would prefer to have the money in my bank than in the ATO's bank. And yet I can very clearly remember my time in the armed forces when I was managing soldiers, and they actually liked the idea of getting a nice big fat tax check as a return at the end of the year. And I'm looking at them, scratching my head going, I'd never understood that. I just looked at them and going, wouldn't you rather have the cash in your pocket? And they go, no, sir, no, no. Gives us a nice surprise at the end of the tax year. And so they looked on it as a sort of an informant kind of savings, kind of a savings plan. I thought, I don't want to give the tax office my money. Bugger that.
Well, they're not doing anything with it while you've got it. You're not getting any interest on that money while it's going there.
I guess that's very, very true. So look, we're just about at half time here. You're on Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson. At the microphone with me, I have Justin Bott from Services Australia, or you might know them as Centrelink as well. Look, we are going to go for a short break, and we will be back in just a moment.
Hi, and thank you for listening to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly radio program about finance, money, and investing on Radio Northern Beaches and nationally on the Community Radio Network around Australia. The views, comments, and opinions aired during our program should not be construed or viewed as financial advice. Any commentary is general advice only and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. You should consider whether the advice is suitable for you and your personal circumstances. If in doubt, you should contact an authorised licensed financial planner. We welcome questions and feedback, and you can get in touch with us via our blog, social media channels, or email. Please search for Dollars and Making Sense in your favourite podcast platform, or check out our blog at otgcapital.com.au/blog.
Hi, and welcome back to Dollars and Making Sense, a weekly show about finance, money, and investing. I'm your host, Ray Treverson. Always a pleasure to have Justin Bott, Community Information Officer from Services Australia, rejoining us. It's been a little bit of a while, but Justin, we are talking about end of financial year and tax time and all the good things that we need to be doing. Now, we're focusing the show primarily around people that are recipients of service of Centrelink Australia and Services Australia payments. And so, because we've done show for superannuation, for SMSF holders and trustees, and people who run small businesses. And so even people that are receiving payments from Services Australia do need to be concerned about taxes. And we've talked a little bit about that before we went to the break. So let's talk a little bit about now family payments. Now, I know there are implications for the payments you might be getting for kids. So lodging your tax returns means Services Australia can check if they've paid you the right rate of family tax benefit and childcare subsidy. So if you're getting those payments, there are some things to do. Now, before you answer, I must say to you, ladies and gentlemen, having raised 3 kids, there was a time when I was receiving family benefits. Please make sure if you are entitled to get them, because they are rather generous, I have to say. And it always helped our family budget, I have to say, to be getting these family tax benefits because we had children. So if you are getting these payments, then Justin, what do you have to do?
Yeah, so just quickly going to say the family tax benefit is not a taxable income. So this is not something that you actually need to worry about and declare. This is it's not about having to pay tax on this. It's about making sure that we're paying you the right rate. So with family tax benefit, most customers are getting it paid every fortnight based on an estimate of the income that they've given us. Now, in this case, it'll be for the 2023-24 financial year. So at the beginning of the financial year and during the financial year, they would have given us an estimate of what they thought they were going to earn during the financial year. We made their payments every fortnight based on that. We now need to make sure that we were paying them the right rate, and we use tax returns to do that. And that process is what we call balancing. We compare the estimate of the income that you said you were going to earn against the actual income that you earned. And there are going to be three potential outcomes that happen with this. So first one is you were pretty much dead on. Estimate and actual were the same. Therefore, you got exactly what you're entitled to. The family tax benefit was paid at the right rate. Your childcare subsidy was the right amount. Nothing changes. Other circumstances where you estimated your income was lower than what your income actually was. In that case, we've actually paid you potentially too much family tax benefit or too much in the subsidies from the childcare subsidy. And we're going to ask, a part of the process, we're going to ask you to pay that money back. And the third one is the opposite. You overestimated. You thought you were going to earn more than you actually did. And there are quite a few customers that do this deliberately as part of the process, because that means that what they get paid every fortnight was a little bit less than they might have been entitled to. Then when they lodge their tax returns, it's actually they'll get a top up and the difference will be made. And so, yeah, they'll get the lump sum. So they're, again, using that overestimation as a way to potentially avoid any debt with Services Australia and get the lump sum to come through. So in order for that to happen, we need the tax return. So we need two things. You and your partner, if you've got one, need to lodge your tax returns. And once you do that and you get your tax notice of assessments back, we will then get that information from the Australian Taxation Office and do the comparison. But the other side of it is if you or your partner actually don't have to lodge a tax return because you don't have enough income to warrant that. Now, we're not going to know that from the Australian Taxation Office, so we do need you to tell us directly if that's something that you have to do. So lodge your tax returns or let us know if you don't have to lodge your tax returns if your main thing's there. Now, in saying that, families are in different circumstances, different number of kids, different sort of arrangements. One of the things that you can do that we do recommend is now go to Services Australia's website, servicesaustralia.gov.au. And in the same way that the Australian Taxation Office's tool of do I need to lodge a tax return is very clear on what this one does, we've got one as well, which is what families need to do at tax time.
I'm looking at it right now, yeah.
Which is also quite a very clear tool about to give you guidance on what it is that you are supposed to do. I also want to point out that we talked about that for childcare subsidy and family tax benefit. Although it's a little bit different, the same basic rules apply if you are paying or receiving child support. So if you're paying or receiving child support, the amount that you're receiving is again going to be based on an estimate of your income for the financial year, and the amount that you're paying is based on an estimate of your income for the financial year. And the Child Support Agency, Service Australia Child Support Agency, also want to do the balancing to work out, was that correct? Was the amount correct? What's the new amount going to be? So same basic concept. If you're paying or receiving child support, lodge the tax return or let us know that you don't need to lodge your tax return because there's not enough taxable income there to warrant.
Yeah, I got to say, ladies and gents, and I'm talking 20 years ago now, I was claiming these benefits because I actually had to stop work. My wife was very, very ill. She was fighting off cancer. And with 3 young kids, you have no idea how invaluable this help that we got from Services Australia was, not just in, I think, empathy and being able to help us with fortnightly payments, but being able to sit back and know this money was coming in. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but my word, it made a difference. And I got to say, it's one of those things that you sit there and think to yourself, you know, sometimes having a socialist environment like we do operate in ain't quite that bad. So there you go. So look,
if you want to find out very quickly, if you want to find out more about the whole family tax benefit side of things, servicesaustralia.gov.au. On the very front there, you're going to find a number of little panels for you to click on. There's one for older Australians, but there's one raising kids. So
Now,
click on the raising kids. That will take you into all, not just information about the family payments of the childcare subsidies, but a lot more information and resources to help you through that whole process of, I've just had a baby and where do I go from here?
So a follow-up to that then, if you think that your income's going to be lower than the estimates you gave, you can lodge straight away. The other element, there's pre-filling done here as well in regards to family tax benefit. Is it better to wait for the pre-fill to occur first before they do things, or is it better to wait after the 1st of July and wait for the data to flow through and then put in returns?
It's one of those old risk versus return sort of concepts with this one. Because obviously, if you go earlier and look, fully understand that wait even to the end of the month. If you're confident that there's a lump sum coming your way and you want to get your hands on that as soon as you can, then going earlier means that you'll get that lump sum sooner. Now, in order for that to happen, you're going to actually be lodging before the Australian Taxation Office has done their pre-filling, which means you run the risk of it being inaccurate. And the problem, of course, with it being inaccurate is that when your tax return is wrong, the information that they give us is wrong, which means the assessment of family tax benefit will be incorrect. And so you've all got, so as long as you are thorough and, in all the information that you provide, then that inaccuracy won't happen. And therefore that won't be a problem. But it's, again, how much effort do I want to do to make this happen myself and get that money that much sooner versus how much of the benefit of hanging on until after the Australian Taxation Office have got that pre-filled thing done, knowing that all my income sources are going to be there and properly declared, and then doing my tax returns once that's all happened, and knowing that the family tax benefit income will be correct and the balancing will be based and won't have to be readjusted or anything like that.
Now, it's unfortunate that at this time of the year, when people are desperate to get their tax returns happening, this is when scammers all of a sudden come out of the woodwork yet again. I must say, I'm seeing such an increase in activity coming onto my smartphone. Email these days, I think, gets blocked far more effectively, but the mobile phone now is becoming quite a target. So given that this starts to increase, I guess, the kind of scamming, is this happening where people start pretending to be the ATO and starting to pretend to be Services Australia? Are you seeing that on the increase again?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm same with you. I don't need any proper statistics to tell me it's increasing. I just look at my phone every couple of days and there's a message from, there's some adjustment that needs to be made with my MyGov inbox, or the Australian Taxation Office have got some details that need to be updated or something like that. And the trick here is if they include a link to your MyGov inbox, and then you know that it's not us or not the Australian Taxation Office. So what we strongly encourage anybody to do is, if they get anything like that, you are absolutely able to look at your MyGov inbox anytime, but we strongly recommend you never click on that link. You go directly to the MyGov website yourself, which is my.gov.au, log in that way. So you type that into your web browser. You type my.gov.au. You don't click on anybody that's trying to give you a shortcut. And then you log into MyGov that way, or you use the MyGov app and go in that way, which I think is great, the MyGov app, because it uses your phone security system, your facial recognition, your fingerprint scanning, all that sort of stuff to make sure that you are you before it lets you into the app.
Then multi-factor authentication as well.
All that sort of stuff, yeah. So then that means that you can then have a look at your inbox either through the website or through the app, and then you know if there is something there, it is legitimately something you need to deal with. Otherwise, you run the risk of clicking on a link, being taken to something that looks very, very similar to the MyGov inbox, and then you start typing in your details, and they're keeping a track of everything you put in there, so they can then potentially use that information to access your record, go to your tax return, go to your Services Australia record. Now, in saying that, it is harder than that, but you're certainly making it an easier task for them. If you don't give them that sort of information, they've got no chance to get into you. So that's why we just say, go properly to the website directly, use the app directly. Don't ever use a link that they send you through the phone, through your text.
I think that's very, very salient advice there, Justin. And I guess, we love a giveaway here on Dollars and Making Sense. So we're giving away free information, ladies and gentlemen. We're so generous here. We are so generous. But look, some of the free info, we'll post some of these links. Justin sent them through to me and we'll put them up on our blog. But look, the Services Australia website, I'm looking at it right now, to those of you that are watching on YouTube, so you'll see me looking off screen, but there's a great link there of what families need to do at tax time. We talked about the one that said, do I need to lodge a tax return? So if you're not sure where to look, just plug that into your browser, your favorite internet search engine, and it will come up. And make sure, obviously, it is an Australian government website. It's really straightforward, servicesaustralia.gov.au. And then again, what do families need to do at tax time? I mean, I don't know how much easier. It's pretty plain, nice, easy to use English that you guys have employed. So much simpler than, you've got to use the NAT 0677-512B version 4. It's like, and so, life is certainly like that, together with pre-filling and single touch pay that's now been around. And again, ladies and gentlemen, be aware that super is going to be coming around to payday soon. So everything's starting to get faster and faster and faster and far more immediate. And Services Australia is no different in that regard, Justin.
No, that's right. And with things like single touch payroll, we actually can use the information from that given to us by the Australian Taxation Office to help people that are reporting every fortnight of their income. So it's stopped being so much this is what I've earned. So it's confirming again, this is what the Australian Taxation Office are reporting that I've earned. Yes, that's right. No, it's wrong. This is why it's wrong. So yeah, we are trying to make that process as easy as possible for customers. Ultimately, with the goal, all of this is with the goal of trying to make sure that we're getting the right amount of payment to the right people, so that they're not missing out on money that they should be entitled to, but they're also not getting more money than they should be entitled to, because we are still responsible to the Australian taxpayer.
That's bad as well.
You got to make sure everybody gets what they're entitled to.
Justin, Media Information Officer for Services Australia, always a pleasure to have you on Dollars Making Sense. And until next time, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.